Welcome back for our next game where the Golden Guardians have to face down Counter Logic Gaming. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and joining me for the first time since the TD Garden, Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley. It has been a long time, my friend.
It has been far too long, but we are reunited at last.
Reunited once again. Here we go. Let's get into the teams. First up, selecting the blue side, it's the Golden Guardians, with Lorlo in the top lane, Contracts in the jungle, High, Mid, Deftly Bot, Matt supporting, and Coach Locodoco.
And facing them on the red side, still looking for their first win of the season, it's Counter Logic Gaming. In the top lane, Darshan. In the jungle, Rainover. Mid lane, Huhi. Bot and support going to be Stixay and Biofrost with Coach Six.
And at 0-3 each, neither team here today wants to be gifted a win. They want to make this convincing, and it needs to be convincing if you want to shake off such a sloppy start to the split. For CLG, their pain points are in the lanes with the newest roster additions.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, one of the things I've been looking at also is Rainover and kind of some of his struggles in the mid game. It feels like even though he's having really great early planning, his mid game decision making, he's getting caught out. He's choosing fights he should not. He's not playing on the strong sides of maps and things like this. And that's not something you can really afford to do at this level. And CLG for their bot lane, honestly, it's just been a struggle. Stixay has not been performing up to expectations. Biofrost and him have not really been working that well together. And people are kind of left wondering, were they maybe carried by their former teammates?
Well, we'll see if they can show some signs of improvement here against the Golden Guardians today, who have yet to show us what their own winning formula is.
Yeah, and yesterday, Golden Guardians were up 8K against FlyQuest and were not able to close that one out. Definitely a disappointing loss for them. And when asked about the team's identity, the answers you get don't seem to necessarily be super clear as far as this guy is going to be the carrier, this is the way that we're going to win. And I think if the team is not going to win through macro play and team-oriented play and good communication, then it has to be individuals stepping up, right? So it's got to be one or the other. You can't have neither and expect to get wins. You either need big stars making big plays, or you need to have perfect communication and coordination.
Right, and with the outcome of the previous game, with the fact that Optic was able to lock themselves into a win, they were one of the remaining 3 teams coming into today that had no wins. That leaves only these 2 teams remaining, so one of these 2 squads is going to leave week 2 still without a win under their belts, and that's not how you want to start your season off.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, they'd be the only 0-4 team. Certainly a disappointing start, I mean, for either team, but really, when you're thinking about preseason expectations for CLG, that would be a shocker for many. You know, Jat had them at number 1 in his power rankings. Kobe and myself had them in top 3. So certainly people had high expectations for this CLG roster. And it is pretty surprising to see that it has not come together whatsoever.
And I mean, this is also one of the old guards, right? One of the oldest flags in North America is that of CLG. This organization has been around for so long. They've got veteran players here that have played together before. This is a team that people are expecting quite a lot out of. And let's see if they can pull it together today. They're going to have to start stepping up here soon. And the same you can say for the Guardians, who want to prove themselves as a team that's not just going to hang out towards the bottom half of the ladder, but climb up and be a threat towards the mid and upper areas. Let's see what they do in Champion Select, though. Jason Sejuani banned out by Golden Guardians. Counter Logic Gaming starting off with the Zoe ban.
And it'll be interesting to see how many bans are going to get thrown towards the mid lane. You know, in the last game, Power of Evil played as Syndra. We saw so many bans actually targeted towards him and towards the mid lane in general. That kind of opened up some more unique picks because, as everyone knows, there really has been the big 4 in mid lane. It's been Zoe, Ryze, Malzahar, Azir. Those are the guys that are all above like 70% presence in pro play. Everyone else is far below that. So generally speaking, if they're not targeting the pick and ban, it's just going to be one of them.
We'll have to see if they want to place that kind of priority on those this game. It likely will be the case, considering you only see the Zoe bans so far. Rengar and Kalista, the bans for CLG. Golden Guardians finishing out their bans with the Ornn, but I don't think that Wukong's actually going to get locked in. As much as you might like to see it, it seems to just be a troll hover. Going with that Ezreal instead. We've been seeing a lot of him lately.
Yeah, you hate to see that.
The
fans got baited. Lorlo not coming.
Don't do that to him, Lorlo.
Yeah, but Ezreal is the first pick, and it's kind of interesting because there's been such high priority on Ezreal, especially in comparison to some of the other regions where it has not been picked as early or as often, really. I've been surprised to see that Kog'Maw has not been as high priority. When you look at some of the other regions, you know, thinking of LPL, thinking of even some of the LCK and some of the other regions, it's been so incredibly strong, and in solo queue, it's considered such a monstrous pick that you can build around, especially when it's harder to exploit Kog'Maw in the early stages with this Relic Shield meta. This is our last day in the LCS on 8.1, so it's kind of the last chance for a lot of these people to really abuse that, but it has just not seemed to be very popular.
Well, talking about popularity, your earlier prediction was correct. If left open, that mid lane pool is often very shallow these days. One of those champions that does show up over and over again, the Rise, which is locked in now by Counterlogic Gaming, picking up their second solo lane as well with the Gangplank.
Yeah, definitely thinking we're probably going to see, Malzahar and Azir come through here for high, but he's one of the guys that is not afraid of changing things up. When you think back to the FlyQuest days, bringing out things like the Talon, he's been known for his assassin play in the past, even bringing out things like Kassadin when LeBlanc was considered so incredibly strong and trying to answer that. So High would not be someone to surprise me from bringing out a new counter pick or something that he thinks can answer the pick. But definitely more standard would just be a Malzahar here.
Well, we'll see Golden Guardians go ahead, lock in the Gnar to square off against that Gangplank. We kind of saw the analyst desk talking a little bit at the start of the day about how Gnar is so popular in Korea, and maybe we'll get to see a little bit of why that's so popular and powerful over there, depending on how well Lorlo can perform on it here today. Also going to go with the Jarvan, locking that one in, but that means they don't have a mid laner selected before the second part of the bans.
Yeah, they definitely don't, and the Big Four has the ability to actually be taken off the tables. And to speak a little bit about the Gnar versus GP, looking at global averages, this is certainly a very heavily Gnar-favored matchup in the early stages. On average, Gnars are very far ahead at 15. It's something like over 20 CS ahead at 15 because GP can be kind of pushed in early, can be harassed, and Gnar, especially in combination with a powerful early jungler like a J4, can even threaten to dive and kind of really punish that GP. But that being said, if you cannot do that, if you're not able to keep that pressure on, GP will outscale you. GP will be able to start winning in that split push in the side lanes and having more consistent impact in the team fights. So you have to be willing to play that matchup somewhat aggressively and really try to make the most of your time in the early game.
Well, the final ban for the final pick, for Counterlogic Gaming before the second part of the bans roll in is going to be Zac in the jungle for themselves. So both junglers picked up, means you won't see any jungle bans coming in during the second phase. But interestingly enough, CLG will not go to ban out the remaining two members of the Big Four in mid lane, instead banning out one of those comfort picks for High with the Orianna. Golden Guardians banning the Tahm Kench.
Yeah, it makes some sense. I mean, Orianna would have a lot of ways in, ball delivery systems with the J4, with the Gnar. Definitely some strong picks there. And honestly, they may feel that High is not comfortable on the Azir or something along those lines, or that they have a good answer for the Azir already with things like the Zac, with things like the GP, because Zac is certainly someone who can attack Azir in the mid lane. You have point and click stun from the Rise here, then the Zac can be coming over from Wraith Pits and things like this. GP ultimate can get dropped down, so Azir certainly can be attacked in that way, and CLG has maybe drafted themselves to a position where they're comfortable, even if it is slight.
Well, Stixxay with the classic Warwick hover, as the Malzahar is CLG's second ban. So like you said, Azir, the only one of those Big Four still remaining. Tahm Kench and Varus, the bans from Golden Guardians. CLG decide they're going to go for that Tristana. We've seen Tristana have some pretty big late game performances so far.
Yeah, and if the games are going long, Tristana is such a good option because the late game is so powerful for her. You're getting the additional range with your passive. When you hit, especially a 3-item power spike with your double Zeal items, your IE, you're incredibly strong, and you don't even have to really build much lifesteal anymore these days. You can look at things like Legend Bloodline. Instead of Legend Alacrity, you can also go for Fleet-Footed. You have the Relic healing. So it allows you to do these kind of very greedy, full offense style builds.
All right, let's see how Golden Guardians want to round out the roster here. This is the third time, audience. You can't keep getting baited like this. They're going to keep doing it to you over and over. Vladimir and Braum locked in for Golden Guardians. That's their 5-man roster. Let's see how CLG wants to finish this one up with the support pick.
Pretty interesting. Vladimir definitely has been more prevalent in the top lane, obviously still can be strong in the mid lane, and this is such a strong team fight combo oriented style that Golden Guardians has drafted. When you look at the amount of dive, the amount of CC that is here on this squad, it's definitely very powerful. That being said, some of these champions are less consistent, right? You're not always going to get the big Mega Gnar. You're not always going to be able to get into the backline and pull off these sort of Vladimir combos. So if CLG is able to absorb that engage with something like a Taric, live through that, I do think that the consistent DPS is somewhat lacking from the Golden Guardians squad. They need to have a very powerful start to the fights where they take people out or they're probably going to lose.
And at the start of this, what did we say? We wanted to see Golden Guardian win conditions. We wanted to see this team go into the game saying, hey, here's how we win, and execute on that from start to finish. So if you do have this big team fight potential, if you do have the ability to unload these conditional wombo combo pieces, then to me, Azael, the game is all about making sure those conditions are met every single time you go in.
It certainly is, and for CLG, it's about avoiding or absorbing it, right? And CLG is certainly going to have their options to do that. They have their own sort of disengage and absorption with the Taric and the Taric ultimate, and they can also split push in 1-3-1 with Ryze and GP, so they may not even try to give them those sort of fights.
Looking at CLG, we talked about it already. I want to go back to it again. A team that had high expectations from so many people, so many preseason predictions saying CLG is going to look good. The roster swaps around, the shifts, the changes during the offseason. They're saying, look, this looks like a really strong version of CLG. Hasn't quite shown up yet. And a lot of people are saying, okay, this is where CLG really needs to turn on right here, get themselves going in week number 2. And that has to be what the team's thinking as well running into this one.
Yeah, you got to start building confidence for both of these teams. If you can end week 2 on a high, it's something to kind of build upon. It's something to kind of have under your belt and start working towards. And it is interesting to point out that 6A actually did have unsealed spellbook. So I haven't seen that really much on Tristana, but it's been becoming more and more common for bot lanes in general, especially on 8.2. We have seen it showcased a couple of times, obviously, unsealed spellbook supports and these sorts of things. And I'm going to be interested to see how he's going to utilize this, if it's more just for the lane pressure, if it's for early teleports back to lane, to try to constantly shove in Deathly and Mad and look to siege early turrets. And then you also have to remember some of the flexibility in the later stages of the game.
Right.
You can swap to things like Exhaust if you're really worried about these sort of full-on damage dives that are being put out by someone like High, and that can give you a little bit more flexibility.
And I mean, we've seen a lot of Summoner Spellbook, not just in bottom lane, but we've seen it in solo lanes, we've seen it in junglers, we've seen it all over the place. And it's honestly that flexibility, the fact that if you don't have a keystone that's sticking out to you and you're saying, oh man, I really want that this game, having those discounted cooldowns on your summoner spells, having the ability to swap back and forth between them, even though you're not adding some new capability to your champion, like through press the attack with your feet footwork, you're making it so those other capabilities are more accessible.
Yeah, certainly so. And it's a good point talking just about the summoner spell cooldown, because even if you never swap your spells, having them up more often can be pretty powerful.
It's pretty strong.
But either way, we're going to see Golden Guardians starting off with this invade. It was actually warded out there, so we are going to have Reignover aware of what is going on, and likely you're going to see some vertical jungling. I'm expecting Reignover to just go straight down and try to steal their opponent's blue buff, and maybe after he does Wraith. Because if you just are accepting that he's going to clear your half the jungle and then also forfeit your own, that certainly can be pretty detrimental. You'll put yourself very, very far behind.
I like this early from Golden Guardians, though. I like making these kinds of moves. I like flexing those muscles and moving into enemy territory and saying, no, I'm going to go take this. We're going to start off offensive already, trying to make something happen.
And it looks like Reignover is not going to go for the blue, so very likely just going to be a 3-buff here for Contracts. Maybe he doesn't feel he has the ability to do so with his solo lanes kind of being pushed in for now. So pretty intelligent early move there from Golden Guardians, and it's usually CLG that is actually kind of known for these early level 1s, the pre-planned stuff that works out quite well for them. So it's nice to see another team kind of pulling one of their moves against them.
And you mentioned at the very start of this whole thing how Reignover's mid-game decision-making has been a bit questionable so far, as Matt and Deathly try to make something happen here, but can't find those 4-hit procs. But Reignover's mid-game decision-making has been where he's had some errors, but the early game has been where he's normally found some successes. But if he's the one behind already, that can't bode well.
It certainly can, and now going in fairly late, he's just going to drop a ward. It looks like perhaps take away the blast ban. He actually did spot Contracts, and Contracts shouldn't know that he is there. They did spot him on a ward now.
Lorlo forced to flash away from that one. Good job by Reignover, recognizing that Jarvan wouldn't be able to counter gank that one immediately. Gets the flash for free, and now backs away, knowing that Jarvan is still nearby. Free summoner spell. Yeah,
very nicely done, honestly, from Reignover. The ward was pretty clever. He spots him on the blue. This allows him to have a little bit of a head start and actually get that flash out. And we talked about this matchup in Champion Select. The Nard does need to kind of push the pace. The Nard does need to be the one playing somewhat aggressive here. You don't want this to turn into an even farm lane. And when you're down a flash, you have to play so much more passively. So that alone is going to give Darshan quite an advantage.
For Contracts, though, it doesn't feel too super bad, just because if you look at the buff timer on his blue, his first blue was about to run out just as he gets the second one, so he gets to just have that sustain, have that extra mana regeneration throughout the jungle to make it so he's really going to take no damage and never be in a bad position to make a play if he sees the opportunity.
And there's just way more for him to farm, right? He took 2 camps from his opponent's side of the map, and he lost 0. So he has the additional camps up to farm. He's already level 4. Reignover is doing his Wolves, and then there's no Gromp for him to do. There's not really anything for him to do besides go and try to gank again, where Contracts can continue this hard farming route. He can go to Wraiths, he can go to Golems, and if Reignover invades here, it's going to be met by Contracts. He's not going to be able to kill this off before the Jarvan arrives.
He will place the ward down, so he's going to see that Contracts is here, but one thing I want to go ahead and mention real quick, just get it out there. There are 9 stopwatches in this game. Gnar, the only champion on the map that does not have a stopwatch. So as we're talking about making plays and finding opportunities, remember that every single one of those plays and opportunities is going to be a little bit harder to execute than it might initially look just because of those stopwatches being so present.
Yeah, definitely so. At the same time, you can use them aggressively sometimes. It can allow you to pull off things like turret dives because you can, reset aggro and immune turret shots and so on and so forth. But the big X factor to it that really kind of shuts that down is oftentimes it's buying so much time for the defending jungler to arrive, and that can really spell disaster in those sorts of aggressive plays. So we'll have to track that cooldown. It's kind of just like a third summoner, honestly, it feels like, in the early game. It's something you have to track, you have to be aware of, just as you might not try to dive someone if they have flash up. Well, you probably shouldn't try to dive them if they have that the stopwatch ready.
Right. I mean, you think about a summoner spell, you think about what it does. It takes a situation that would normally be bad and makes it salvageable or makes it good even. And stopwatch fits that exact bill. Reignover now going to be found by Contracts, but CLG has 2 men into the situation already. Lorlo going to be rotating over now as well. Both junglers might be in some danger here. Contracts may go down first, and he will. That's first blood over to Darshan. The gangplank, not the guy you want with that money.
No, not at all. And Contracts didn't even try to flash out of there. I mean, you have to feel like he could have just immediately flashed back over the wall. And sure, you lose your summoner. That sucks, but that was just not really what you want to see happen. And okay, great. He moves over. He's trying to put pressure onto Reignover, but at this point, you know the GP is going to be there sooner. You know Lorlo is not really going to be able to offer the help, and he is not flashing. He waits so long. The stretching strikes is there to actually lock him up, and they're even able to get that first blood on a GP. So pretty big mistake, honestly, from Contracts.
Yeah, I should clarify, Golden Guardians doesn't want the gangplank having that money.
Yeah.
The CLG is more than happy having gangplank go to the bank. Darshan, one versus one against Lorlo now. Lorlo may be in some serious trouble here. Barrel going to go off. Darshan still looking to chase him down a little bit further. Trial by fire is proc, but now Lorlo has the opportunity to return some damage of his own. Gets himself back, though. Doesn't want to make a mistake and end up giving up a lot of this wave. Plenty of minions here means that this won't go any further, but these guys really are looking to get into those fights now.
Yeah, they certainly are, and it doesn't bode well that it's Darshan pushing back the Gnar in these early stages, and I personally am never a fan of seeing early tabbies and things like this on the Gnar in this sort of a matchup. I prefer if they're trying to get more quickly to a Black Cleaver and trying to be able to be a bit more aggressive. This may just be a result of the fact that, hey, I lost my flash early, I need to be able to have the additional movement speed, I need to be able to dodge out on Zac ganks and that sort of thing, and that's okay, but it puts you in this position where GP is going to be on a Triforce, and you're going to be on tabbies and some pieces.
And a Phage and a Kindle Gem.
Exactly, and then you're so much weaker in that 1v1, and you're kind of already accepting that you're going to be outscaled, and that's just not something that really feels good about that matchup. Yes, you still can have a lot of team fight presence as an Gnar, but it's conditional, right? You have to be able to land the Mega Gnar, you have to be able to hit these combos, and that's not always going to be there for you.
And checking in, just because we are starting to talk about how that scaling can be troublesome, you can see there is a 15 CS lead right now for Lorlo over Darshan. So at least for the early game, despite the fact that Darshan was able to grab himself the kill, you still have the farm lead going the way of Lorlo. So they've got that. The junglers, Contracts has the lead, as you would expect him to, based on what happened early on. Mid lane's very close, bottom lane very close, about a wave and a half in advantage for Stixxay. And I specifically want to talk about that, Azale, because you mentioned how CLG's bottom lane has not been performing up to the level that fans and the team itself would like them to be at. Yeah. These guys need to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, they certainly do. And Stixxay, we pointed out he is playing on Sealed Spellbook. He did swap it over to TP, go back to lane. So that's kind of where you can expect some of the CS advantage to come from. You can get an advantageous base and kind of push it up there. Obviously, there is a cost to Unsealed Spellbook as far as actual combat power, right? That's something that you're going to have to kind of track later. People often talk about Kleptomancy as not having combat power, but you're still going to get elixirs, you're still going to get bonus AD and those sorts of consumables that will give you some power in the fight. And it's going to be, to me, about how much can he actually convert from the TPs, how much can he convert from the lower cooldown on his summoner spells, because if he's not pushing and pressuring turrets, if he's not able to really get something extra from that, it doesn't really seem like it panned out, right? It doesn't really feel like it's
CLG managing to grab themselves 2 blue buffs, but now it's Lorlo and Contracts looking to maybe take Reignover down here. Reignover does get himself away, utilizing the Let's Bounce to escape. But I like that control over the buffs. They lost the first buff rotation control. The second time around, though, they're on top of it.
Yeah, they do take one away, but this is one of those plays that certainly could have gone wrong, and now that the jungler is gone.
Oh.
Darshan's gonna have to get out of there.
Very nice flash to avoid the knockup from the EQ. Contract's just going to keep on farming it out. Darshan stays safe.
And Contracts actually tried to late flash to redirect his EQ to get the knockup on Darshan there, but he did it a little bit too late. His flag and direct had completed, so he doesn't actually get the knockup on Darshan and ends up wasting his flash. But back to the Rainover point, Rainover has had very good early games, but then he's often gotten caught out, and this was a near miss on his invade. Yes, he did get the blue buff, but it cost him his flash, and had he actually died there, that would have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's risk versus reward, and it's kind of hard to see if it's really, really worthwhile.
Bottom lane definitely farming up down here. Definitely and Matt, the Golden Guardians bottom lane, trying to make sure that they can get themselves farmed up to a point where they're going to be relevant in the mid game because of the fact that this Ezreal needs to be relevant in the mid game, right? You want to get that Trinity Force, you want to get that, or the Iceborne Gauntlet, usually going to be the option these days, excuse me, but you want to get that, you want to get the Muramana, you want to be able to have that poke so that you can be relevant in the mid game, because like you mentioned earlier, Azale, this Tristana with the scaling, with the crit items, with that big late game power, the Ezreal's not going to match it in terms of damage output.
Yeah, or at least it's much more difficult to do so, right? Like, you can have a lot of damage on the scoreboards from poke, but in the all-in team fights, the auto-attack damage from Ezreal is generally much lower. It's a spell-based caster, and when tanks are in your face, it can be difficult to punch through. So we'll see how they're going to be able to manage that. But so far, so good for the Ezreal in the bot lane, despite the fact that 6A has been TPing back. Actually looking for a catch on Matt.
Matt face checking that one, losing about half his HP for it. Definitely finding the Mystic Shot there onto Stixxay. Winter's Bite up to 2 stacks onto Biofrost. Make it 3. Can we find number 4? Yes, we can. There comes through Glacial Fissure. Cosmic Radiance going to be using the counterattack. High is here, but so is Rainover. Looking to make this a 3 versus 3. Vladimir ulti finds its way down. They're able to take High back over the wall, but that's Vladimir. He's still very hard to actually take down. Stixxay now going to be brought down to half HP. High popping the stopwatch. Keeping himself all right. Continues to go forward with the Tides of Blood. Biofrost and Rainover both very low. Not likely wanting to continue this one too much further, but they will go after Matt once again. Stun comes through. Rainover going to be taken very low. High has the pool once more. Transfusion available with the empowered version. Biofrost still trying to keep himself safe. 6-day. Going to be popping that hourglass himself. So many of these hourglasses. And ultimately, Azale, nobody dies.
League of Stopwatches, baby. Let's go. And High, popping his stopwatch. Didn't actually have vision of the Tri-Brush, so I think he was worried about a re-engage from Zach or from the Terra coming out there, but much ado about nothing in the end. A lot of kind of traded stopwatches, summoners traded back and forth, but no one does go down, and Contracts is up on the top side, taking away the red buff. Definitely is still pressuring this turret, so I would say Golden Guardians does end up kind of coming out ahead in that regard.
Stixxay at least healthy enough to stick around, not miss out on the wave, which is a big thing, right? You can't afford to miss out on having 2.5 waves of minions just get absorbed by the turret, so he will be able to find that farm for himself. Up about 10 CS still, hasn't really changed since the last time we checked in on it. Top lane staying pretty close as well. Rainover constantly trying to take any little advantages he can. We see this a lot out of him, actually. Counter jungling, just trying to outpath the enemy jungler, grab some resources where he can. And we've seen Zax make some big plays so far, just in the week and a half of play that we've seen so far in North American LCS. Zach can make big moves, so if Rainover has the ability to get big with this champion. Biofrost now.
No ultimate available.
Again, but he does have a stopwatch.
Well, both the stopwatches are down now for the CLG.
Those are out of the way.
So you can start pinging them on the scoreboard. Broken stopwatch. Where's my jungler at? But yeah, I mean, it's true. Zach definitely has the potential to make a lot of these big plays, and they're trying to roam a lot of members down here. Golden Guardians have 4 men on the bot side. Lolo does not have his TP, so he cannot join, but it has been spotted out, and Rainover's moving down. GP Ultimate gets dropped into the wave.
Trying to keep this a little bit longer. They will not be able to hold the turret. First turret going over to Golden Guardians is a nice bonus bit of gold here. Takes them up to about a 600 gold lead as we get closer and closer to that mid game.
And it's interesting to see how much more pressure the bot lane had here from Golden Guardians, despite the fact that 6-day is TPing back to lane multiple times. The CS is a little bit in CLG's favor, but getting that 2v2 turret is a big deal this early on. You can start to move that bot lane around, try to put on more pressure, and just even the injection of gold is also quite a big deal. So it's kind of one of those arguments, is Spellbook worth it if it's just maybe holding you even a bit? Like, did they have to actually get something from it? Or you could make the argument, well, they would have lost even harder if they didn't have the TP to go back to lane. But to me, it doesn't feel very worthwhile if you're going to be losing lane like that anyway, and then you're also foregoing some of the later combat power.
Decent attempt at a steal there by Deftly with the True Shot Barrage, but Reignover having Smite means you're pretty much guaranteed to secure the objective. So Drake #1 will go over to CLG. Mountain Drake, which means it's not going to be doing a whole lot for them right now, but later on into the game, if we get to that point where it's all about Barons and trying to sneak them away, then it can be a pretty big thing to have under your belt, while the Golden Guardians go for Rift Herald.
Yeah, certainly can. And I mean, when you're grabbing something like a Rift Herald, if you get a kill, you can drop the Rift Herald, you can sometimes knock down a couple turrets, you know, especially with the addition of the Mountain Dragon for a team, you know, like when Tristana gets up to those turrets, that can be very threatening. So it's something you always have to keep in mind, but it's not immediate power, and that's kind of one of the things that can work against you with that. But we see the Golden Guardians bot lane going to move up the top. They already knocked down the bot lane turret and going to be trying to put pressure onto this GP and his turret.
All right, let's see what Deftly and Mac can do here, trying to put that pressure down like you're talking about. Contracts also there. Biofrost, ulti available, so they got to be careful about doing anything too crazy against these guys. Definitely just wants to lay down as much poke as he can here. This is what we were talking about, the strength of the Ezreal as you approach the mid-game. Having those Sheen enchanted Mystic shots, just land poke time and time again, force your opponents off the objective. Yeah,
can definitely be really strong. Darshan has hit his Triforce Power Spike, so his wave clear is fairly strong here. He doesn't have his ultimate available though, and obviously he has to be kind of careful because while he can clear the waves quite well, there is still the threat of the dive, and we know the Rift Herald is around.
He's got really good timing on those barrels as well. You can see him always shooting right as it ticks down to 1 notch on the health bar, so there's never the opportunity for the Golden Guardians to shoot those before they explode.
Exactly, and it's kind of that mini game of guessing when they're going to shoot versus when you should shoot. If they're shooting early, then sometimes you need to wait. Sometimes you have to kind of mind game them a bit back and forth and try to outplay them a bit in that regard. But there's been a lot of Golden Guardians members hanging around the top side for quite a while, but Contract's just going to go and drop this down in the mid lane, and they're going to try to get some turret damage down here. But Hui has very strong wave clear, and that turret is healthy, so I don't think they're actually going to be able to finish it.
Yeah, Hui cleared everything out instantly there, and although Shelly rams her head into the turret, I mean, that's about all you're going to get, half HP, and not the most successful use of the Rift Herald. They would have liked to at least get 1 turret for it, but it does open up the opportunity to attack the top lane.
It certainly does, and the CLG bot lane is not here just yet, so a lot of damage is going down. GP ultimate has to be expended to kind of protect that here too, and I think the map movement has been quite nice from the Golden Guardians because
I agree.
We've been kind of able to actually skip over this part where Lorlo did not have his Black Cleaver and Darshan had his Triforce. And he was on pieces, but then they lane swapped. He didn't actually have to interact, and now that he has that completed and is at a relatively strong power point, he can go back and start laning once again against Darshan without really being exploited.
And being able to circumvent those weaknesses with proper rotations, with proper map play and macro, is a really big part of the team play element of League of Legends. Now, another big part of that team play is how you can do in the 2v2s. Matt and Deftly backing themselves away, they're just fine.
Yeah, doing pretty well so far. Definitely been a very passive game, besides kind of some of the map movement, but Golden Guardians has gotten a lot of damage on the turrets. They got quite a bit of chunk here in the mid lane from Shelly, and top lane has been getting lower and lower, so CLG is going to have to try to defend this a little bit more aggressively, but Reignover is over by mid lane, and it looks like there might be some action.
And you know, when the first turret was taken by Golden Guardians, we said they were up 500-600 gold from that. Now they're up almost 2,000 gold without taking any more additional turrets. So this team has built themselves up another 1,500 gold lead just from farming, just from rotating. And that's what we're talking about when we're saying the Golden Guardians movements have been good so far this game.
And it's even more important when you're taking into consideration that GP just gives you bonus gold, right? You know, from his parlay, but they are looking to try to knock this down. Reignover is here.
Maybe they can get the turret before the fight starts off, but Reignover's able to initiate the fight instantly. There's your stopwatch from Matt, keeping himself alive. Stixxay going to be taken low, exhausted in the Cataclysm. Reignover into the back line. Stopwatch to keep himself alive. True Shot Barrage will cut him down anyway. A nice Mega Gnar onto 2. Wallop follows it up. Chemo Plague's going to be ticking. They find the kill onto Reignover. 1 for 0.
Yeah, another nice kill. They knock down the turret there too. They are just moving around the map better, plain and simple. And CLG did not really have the men in position to defend that turret when it was so low. If the turret was actually high in health, they might have been able to, but Hui
in some trouble, but the classic Rise interaction with the ultimate. I'll be glad when that's gone.
There's only 2 remaining.
It's so difficult to deal with that. Rise is just so effective at getting himself out of danger.
It's a get out of jail free card.
It is, but we're not playing Monopoly, Azale. We're playing League of Legends.
That's true.
All right, mid lane tier 1, just about to fall. Shelly might not have been able to do it, but that little cannon minion, he's going to make it happen. All right, Dawn looking for some damage here onto Deftly. They will force the flash out. The threat of the Dazzle from Biofrost was enough to make him expend that Summoner spell, but remember, they've still got Hai and Matt here to try to defend this one. CLG really wanting to get on the board with objectives, down 0-3 in turrets. They need some of this global gold to keep the game close.
Yeah, I mean, this is 5 men mid for CLG. That's a pretty huge commitment there, and they are actually having to back off. It's able to be wave cleared out. A Golden Guardians can reset, but here it is again, and the turret is so incredibly low that making this sort of a stand can sometimes go against you, since you can just finish off the turret and then actually turn to the fight. They have their stopwatches to buy a little bit of time. You can see definitely focuses down the turret, then is able to turn, and despite the fact that double TP is coming in here from CLG, Reignover is already so far forward, it's really very hard to actually go forward and defend him through Lorlo and through Hai, who are dropping their ultimates and then kind of just retreating back to Reignover's passive to take him out.
Yeah, Matt came so close to death there, but getting himself away and baiting Reignover in like that. Well played by the Guardians, now finding themselves with what seems to be about a 3,500 gold lead. Almost 4,000 actually, as we hit that 20-minute point into the game. Baron is now live. You can see the gold values there on the bottom part of your screen. Very close between Lorlo and Darshan, even though Darshan is, like you said, that Gangplank has the extra gold generation. Yep, even though he cheats at gold farming, he's up against an opponent who has more CS than him. If you look at the jungle, there's an advantage for contracts there as well. Mid lane, 1,000 gold lead for Hai, and bottom side, almost 2,000 for Deathly.
And that is really the big deal, because despite the fact that I would say Tristana becomes a more powerful scaling champion, if you're that far behind, it doesn't really matter, right? You need to be around even in items, and 6A has fallen a bit behind as far as the farm. He's down a kill. They're down 3 turrets, so a lot of the global gold going over to Ezreal as well. And Ezreal in the mid game, I think this is around his strongest point. You know, when you complete Blade of the Rune King, you're on those 3 items. It's massive, but Hai, they're gonna take a go.
Trying to make these plays. Hai goes into the pool, trying to keep himself alive, does get away in time. Gangplank ulti coming down to prevent any kind of a retreat, but the Guardians are not looking to retreat right now. CLG's attempt ends up falling short. It's so difficult, Azale, to make plays onto a Vladimir.
Yeah, it really is. And Matt just kind of using his ultimate across the wall there, almost as like a zoning ultimate so they cannot actually come through. But definitely hard to take him down, and they're maybe looking for a fight here. CLG's going in. All
right, Zach ulti not finding much of anything. Tries to go for Matt there, but it's a swing and a miss. CLG's bottom lane retreating back towards mid, and it fizzles out.
And it's Golden Guardians pushing the side lanes again. You can see Lorlo has shoved in the bot side. Hai is pushing the top side. The 3-man squad shoving up here to really start to threaten this turret, and so far, so good for the Golden Guardians. They have this super powerful Ezreal at this point in the game. Very hard to actually contest him in a fight. He's going to be so slippery, and no one has really gotten tanky enough to the point where they can kind of deal with a lot of his damage.
Now, one thing that will deal with some of that damage that I think is worth mentioning, as Lorlo has to jump over the wall to get himself away from Darshan here, is the Warmogs is now done on Reignover. And that's one of those problems for Ezreal. When you're all about poke, it's problematic. Speaking of problematic, running into the enemy AD carry is going to be a bit of an issue here for Lorlo as he tries to jump over the wall yet again. He's buying so much time as Reignover dies off screen. Hopefully we'll get another look at that, but Golden Guardians now on to Baron, enemy jungler dead. 2 opponents chasing their top laner through the bottom part of the map. This is an awesome setup for Golden Guardians. They're forcing CLG to respond.
Yeah, and even just by starting this up, they save Lorlo because CLG cannot continue to actually chase here and Hai. On the side, is looking to set up a bit of a flank, but they're taking way too much damage. They don't actually kill this fast enough. They have to get off.
Contracts wanting to go in onto Stixay there, popping his own stopwatch. Cosmic Radiance going to be used. Darshan still looking to find the damage, able to grab the kill onto Contracts there. Matt now in retreat along with Deathly and Hai. Hai very, very low flash forward. Stixay looking to grab the kill. The damage comes in for Darshan, and CLG finally finds themselves a fight 3-0.
Golden Guardians were just way too overzealous there, and CLG looking to set up a dive. Now Hui on the side.
Oh, Deathly gets dunked. Hui's got the damage. Lorlo, the last man standing. We thought he was going to die a while ago, but now it's the ace for CLG, and sights are set on Baron.
Yeah, I mean, the initial Baron start was great from Golden Guardians to actually save Lorlo, but then they just stayed on the Baron with almost no damage. They take so much of their health from this neutral objective, and CLG is able to take that, get an ace. They're going to get the Baron, and the gold lead is all but gone now for Golden Guardians.
A critical error from Golden Guardians on this Baron. Let's take a look at how it started with this pick on Zac.
And I mean, this is a great initial play from Golden Guardians, right? They get the pick on Zac. This forces CLG to actually bail out of the bot lane chase, knowing that their jungler is down. Baron is an objective on the map. Had they kept chasing Lorlo, they could do this. But look how low Contracts is. Matt is, why are you turning to fight when you guys are at 20, 30% HP? they're not really going to be in the position to do this, and Lorlo is not there. He has his TP up, but the fight is already lost. There's nothing really for him to come and TP into. And I just think this was way too much from Golden Guardians. It felt like everything was going right for them, and they got super overconfident and just kind of stretched way too far and have completely thrown away their lead.
Well, everything has now shifted. The pendulum has swung back into the direction of CLG, where it honestly has not been this entire game. Golden Guardians, we talked about how their rotations were good earlier, how they were playing the map well, and now this one error has cost them all of that control. CLG, they're ahead 100 gold. The gold lead's not what this is about right now. It's about the power of this Baron. It's about the fact that now who he's able to be the split pusher, Lorlo having to retreat from him, Darshan's in the top lane. Things aren't looking great.
Yeah, I mean, how many turrets are they actually going to get off this, right? You know, CLG had only knocked down the one in that fight. They got their first turret, and now they're looking at easily getting 3. They're going to get the bot lane tier 1. That's not even being contested. Darshan picked up multiple kills. He was even on gold with Lorlo before that exchange. He's now 2,000 gold, over 2,000 gold ahead. He's about to be closing in on 3,000 gold ahead, and that just shows you the enormity of the gold swing here. And Stixxay, you know, he has been able to kind of get through his power shot by being gifted all these turrets. Now the Baron gold, and he's at a very strong point. So Golden Guardians have definitely really flubbed their lead, and this is kind of reminiscent of yesterday's game where they got themselves into an 8,000 gold lead, an even bigger one against FlyQuest, and then we're not really sure how to close it out. We're not really sure where to go and what to do as the next steps.
And that's what we mentioned with these guys, finding that win condition. And a win condition, they were playing to it well earlier with that macro play, with that map control, but then when you aren't able to take that from start of game to Nexus, is it really the win condition at that point? Because it has to be seen through. You have to have that in-game plan. And now CLG, they're playing this well. As soon as they get the Baron, they split up. They've got their solo laners in the side lanes. Everybody else is hanging on mid. They're not over-committing to anything. This is what I want to see from CLG now that they're in the driver's seat. They've been on the back foot the whole game, but as soon as they've got the Baron, they're tilt-proof. They're just saying, okay, let's go. It's our turn to see what we're going to do with this game.
And they are very strong. I mean, the gold swing is just ridiculous. They were almost 5,000 gold behind under 4 minutes ago. And now, 4 minutes later, they are the ones who are 4,000 gold ahead. You know, this is an 8,000 or so gold swing in the matter of a couple minutes, and they're just bleeding out all their turrets. They went from having every turret up to losing every single outer turret in under 4 minutes. That is insane.
There is nothing left standing outside of the Golden Guardians base.
Yeah, and that's got to be heart-wrenching for them because it felt like everything was going right, and you know, one big mistake, everything is now kind of swung the other way, and it feels like CLG is completely in control. It's going to be Golden Guardians having to find a really good team fight, having to really utilize this combo well. You know, find the Mega Gnar on top of the Vladimir All, on top of the Cataclysm. You need everything to combine perfectly at this point, or I don't think they can win team fights anymore.
Cloud Drake's going to be taken by CLG. Not a huge thing to have, but considering they're the ones making more rotations and making more decisions around the map right now, it'll just help them do that a little bit better. So another resource to have under your belt.
Exactly, and why not take it when you have full control of the map and you can, you know, start the next spawn of a dragon, which could have been something more powerful. It's going to be another Cloud, but you know, were that to be another Infernal, then they would likely be the ones who have priority on it since they are in the more powerful spot. Stixxay, lo and behold, is now on his 3 items. That is kind of the ultra strong point that I talked about with Tristana, where she really comes online. You know, level 14 has a lot of extra range from her passive, in addition to a ton of crit, to a ton of attack speed, and this is where Tristana just becomes a monster.
Worth stating that fully evolved Muramana, as well as Iceborne Gauntlet, as well as Blade of the Ruined King and Executioner's Calling, also up on Deathly. So he's no slouch in the damage department, but like we mentioned earlier, it's all about the fact that we're talking about 100-0 team fights. Not poke, not just trying to see if you can whittle them down, because when most of your Mystic shots are going to find their way onto a Zac with Warmogs, makes it hard.
And it's about the fact that he was 2,000 gold ahead, and now he's behind on gold, right? Like he had his 2.5 items when Stixxay was on 1 item and pieces, and now Stixxay is at the same sort of breakpoint with his champion that just scales better, right? And that's what gets really, really tough for them. The sieging potential of this Tristana is so incredibly strong, and CLG is trying to move in, take control of the division, allow themselves to siege more aggressively.
And when you look at the map right now, I mean, it's just a big old block of red in terms of where it's controlled. CLG's got everything. Golden Guardians confined to their base. They've got a couple wards placed down in their own jungle, but that's about it.
Yeah, and the one thing going for them is kind of those wards. It sets up some possibilities for TP flanks because you're going to need something like that. You're going to need a Vladimir and a Gnar coming in from behind, catching the Ryze, catching the Tristana or the GP and taking them out right off the bat. If Golden Guardians can pull off some sort of a play along those lines, certainly potential for them to be winning team fights, but without that, hope starts getting pretty bleak, and Darshan is split pushing on the top side, looking to pressure some of these inhibitor turrets with the 1-3-1.
All right, Baron's going to be up in a little over 1 minute, so that will likely become a huge point of contest between both these teams. Darshan, no fear in this guy now. He's got so much money, so many items. He's got the Sterix, even if he gets taken low, so he's not too concerned about Lorlo actually posing a real threat to him without help. He continuing to split push in the bottom side. High's Vladimir sort of struggling to deal with this right now.
I mean, Vladimir doesn't have good wave clear without exposing himself. You have to move forward for the Tides of Blood, for your E, drop that from the middle of the minion wave. If you do that against a Ryze who is this powerful, he just combos you down and you lose too much health. So it becomes very difficult for the Vladimir to actually have access to that wave clear, and that is why that turret is getting lower and lower and lower, and why CLG will continue to play this passively and just try to bleed Golden Guardians out. They would like to win this game without fighting, whereas Golden Guardians needs to have the team fights to have a chance.
Right, we mentioned that at the start of the game. It's all about this wombo combo power. It's about lining up these conditional victories that everything needs to be set up just right for, and we're at the point in the game now, 5,000 gold down, opponents are scaling with better scaling champions. It's starting to become worrisome because those conditions become harder and harder to set up. That ideal team fight goes from something that it's like, okay, we can set this up rather easily to we're going to really have to try and force these windows out.
And without any deep vision, CLG can threaten the Baron high and the Hui 1v1.
Ooh, both taken down to about 1/3. Zhonya's high, keeping himself alive for now. Going to be taken very, very low, though. Hui declaring himself the victor in this 1v1.
High can go back to base and heal up, but Hui certainly pressuring pretty heavily here. He is going to go back himself, and CLG still does have vision control around the Baron, but Golden Guardians pushing up mid, trying to shove this back, and critical that High did stay alive for the Golden Guardians, because if he goes down there, the inhibitor falls, everything starts getting pulled apart.
Yeah, if he drops there, then somebody's got to go bottom to deal with Hui to save the inhib. Then Baron's gone, and the whole game just runs away with it. High barely living there. The barely is the key word because he had to not hit 0 HP in that one. As you're looking at items, you got your Gargoyle Stone Plate now onto Lorlo, which could be a big item for him, being able to go in, initiate these fights, and stay alive to get out after he gets the slams, the initial CC, and all the stuns. Because if you're the guy who's going into this, if you're the one who's initiating everything, you're going to be taking so much damage from barrels and Ryze and Tristana. I like this pickup.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and it's just going to be about can he actually do it, because there's high variance on a champion like Gnar, right? This is not someone who can just consistently put out all his damage, and he's actually going to be fighting Lorlo. He does not have a lot of magic resist on this Gnar. He's got to be careful against Hui.
No, when the only magic resist you have is the Gargoyle Stone Plate, and you're in a 1v1. Remember, Stone Plate's not good like that, but now the fight breaking out up near the mid lane. Rain overtaken low, does have a Stone Plate of his own, looking to keep himself alive. Stixay cutting himself backwards. Matt and Contracts frontlining here for Deftly. High trying to do something, but he can't quite find anything just yet. Rainover going to be taken very close to dead, is going to have the passive pop. Cell Division keeping him alive for now. Darshan playing bodyguard duty. Bottom lane, inhibitor taken down by Hui. Lorlo cannot survive this 1 versus 1. He cannot succeed in this fight. And even though the mid lane fight goes even, nobody dead, the inhibitor is the prop.
Yeah, and it's a health advantage for CLG. And Hui is still pressuring here, so they're just going to start the Baron, trying to pull more members up while Hui continues to pressure here. And Contracts is going to need to try to pull off a miracle. High moving up. They want to contest this, but do they have the ability to do it?
The Guardians know that if they lose this Baron, it's likely going to be game over. They cannot allow their opponents to just walk away with it. Baron down to half HP. Rainover still in the pit. If GG can get this for themselves, it's going to be absolutely huge. Baron taken down to about 2K. Rainover going to be stopped for now from maybe stealing it away. Baron taken low, taken down. Golden Guardians able to find the enemy AD carry as well. Stixay not where he needs to be, and that is the swing that Golden Guardians were hoping for.
Yeah, Stixay just kind of wandered in there, trying to get some damage done, not able to do it. Hui never joined the fight, so they were down a man, but it's Golden Guardians who get the Baron, and that's a big deal for them. It is going to give them some measure of map control, at least allow them to reset a little bit, get some vision control back. But in the midst of everything, Hui did take down 2 inhibitor turrets, did get 1 inhibitor. So Golden Guardians certainly still on the back foot.
Let's take another look at how
Yeah, and this is simply high, being able to push Darshan out of the fight. CLG gets somewhat split up, and Reignover trying to find his way back in, but Contracts actually interrupts it, flashes back in the pit, and 6A just wanders up, trying to see if he can get anything done there, straight into range. And didn't really have any business being that close to the fight. If your jungler can't get in, you're not going to be the hero there, and you need to play it a little bit more carefully, especially when you look at the kind of, I don't know, I want to say almost resume of games he's put up for us this season, where consistently in all 3 of his games, he has been struggling in the late game, struggling with positioning, getting caught against C9 by Sven Scarron with Sejuani ultimates time and time again, and then getting caught by Malzahar when he's on Caitlyn. And he needs to be very cognizant of his positioning.
I mean, Baron Nashor has been something that has won a lot of games of League of Legends. It's been something that's thrown so many games as well, and we've seen it working overtime here today as the push continues towards both bases. Golden Guardians pushing up the mid lane and the bottom lane, while Huhi remains that threat in the top lane towards that inhibitor. Hai's going to be on duty trying to defend against that. Golden Guardians know he's the only one that can actually hold Huhi at bay. The rest of the team, it's their responsibility to make something happen in the other lanes.
Exactly, and it looks like CLG's plan for avoiding that Wombo combo is just never actually try to fight them 5v5, right? Have Huhi always putting on pressure in these side lanes. Have him always shoving up and drawing some member away, because if you're CLG, you'd probably prefer to 4v4 over a 5v5, even if Huhi is strong, simply because of the nature of the kind of combo team fight that Golden Guardians has. And as long as they can delay, as long as Huhi is still winning in that 1v1, things are still looking pretty good for CLG, because they can just wait this out, allow the Baron buff to expire, and then continue to try to push.
And we're starting to hit these late game points, Azael. Look at the itemization on both of your mid laners. 5 items and a needlessly large rod on both. They only have to complete that last slot, and then they're good to go. If you look at the 80 carries, all that's left is for Stixxay to upgrade that Hex Drinker into a Maul Malmortius. All that's left is for Deathly to change off that support item to something else. He's got 2,400 gold in pocket, so he's getting close to that. We're going to soon be hitting the point where they don't get stronger.
Yeah, definitely don't. But one of the things that is an advantage, again, for someone like a Tristana is that Ezreal can't really swap out boots for things like another Zeal item for the additional crit and attack speed. I mean, you can, but it's not really much of an advantageous swap, whereas Tristana can kind of go, the 5 items full build, then sell your boots, get another Zeal, then even sell something else and get an Essence Reaver for perfect optimal DPS and these sorts of things. So that's one of the advantages that you do have there, whereas an Ezreal can't always rearrange the build for a more optimal style. You can obviously sell your Iceborne for a Triforce and things like that if you want a bit more damage, but it's a bit harder to kind of finagle that around and have a higher damage build.
Worth noting that Deathly has now sold the support item for the QSS, so he wants the ability to get away from some of the CC that might be able to catch him out, whether it's a Taric stun, a Rise Root, whatever. He would be able to get away from that now. In terms of how much further he has to go to turn that into a Mercurial Scimitar, still going to be about another 1,000 gold or so. So he's got a bit of a ways left to reach. 68,000 gold to 72,000 gold, but remember, as a game goes on, the gold lead means less and less as you approach those points where everybody's hitting the same strength in terms of their items.
Yeah, and Darshan, he's already full build. He has his IE, he has his PD there too. Could sell out those boots again for another damage item if he so chooses, but at a very strong point, and Lorlo will be kind of catching up from here because he still has another full item to go. So there's certainly some room to grow there for him. But again, the story is going to be the same. It's got to be Golden Guardians finding the right engage, finding the right team fights, and they may have caught Huhi out here. Does have Zhonya's ult though.
Yup, you can't just catch Rise out. You've got to always be aware of that. And now CLG seeing multiple members of Golden Guardians in the top side, trying to make a move elsewhere, but they're not going to be fast enough to actually walk away with any kind of inhibitor.
Huhi's got to be a bit careful here, though. There's still 3 members up on the top. We'll see if he can actually get away.
Yeah, Huhi's already used the escape. Remember, he does not have Zhonya's ulti this time. Hai looking to maybe finish this one off. Not going to find it. True Shot Barrage is up from Deathly, but he's not going to be looking to go for the snipe instead. It's going to be a full-on fight here in the mid lane, looking to make this one happen. Cosmic Radiance comes down, but there's not a lot of damage coming in during it.
Lorlo looking.
May now be in some trouble. Lorlo looking to find the Mega Knock, but he's going to be ulted away. The Buster Shot coming in huge.
That was such a big timing window there. Just barely getting the Buster Shot off from Stixxay, knocking Lorlo back before his Mega Gnar slammed him into the wall. If he gets stunned up there with no Taric ultimate, might have gone down, but Contract's
but
looking
if he gets
again.
knocked up into the air and nearly eliminated, it could be just as bad. Stixay down to 1/4 HP. CLG needing to be very careful right now. Rainover on the front line. Gargoyle Stoneblade doing some work. Stixay gonna be jumped on yet again. The damage comes through. The proc is down. The stun is there. But Stixay remains alive. True Shot Barrage cuts him down finally. Lorlo, the one grabbing the kill credit for himself. Rainover still back in the mid lane. 2 Guardians dead. 1 for CLG. Definitely still alive, though, trying to get himself to the point where he can fight back. But who he's able to find his way onto that 80 carry. One big hit could do it. A little bit more damage. Won't quite find the mark. Darshan going to be taken low now as well.
Definitely's got to get out of there.
Wanting to get into that back line. Lorlo now has to escape from this incredibly powerful rise. Darshan unstoppable with the kill onto high. This is likely the game. CLG, 4 members in the enemy base. Deftly and Lorlo remain. There is some potential for a defense, but it's going to be so damn hard. The minion wave in the mid lane, pushing up onto the Nexus turrets. Inhibitor number 2 is down. Lorlo and Deftly will hold this line for now, but who he looking for any chance to turn that around?
Yeah, the respawn timer's too short there for Golden Guardians, so CLG do not want to risk it. They will back off. They have taken down double inhibitor. The Elder is spawning, the Baron is spawning, so if they lost a fight there, they would lose both. Instead, they will reset. They will take the safer option, but Golden Guardians is already rushing out towards Baron. They won't be able to just kill it on spawn, but they're trying to at least get vision. They're trying to enable themselves to have a chance to steal it, just a chance to contest it, because they know with 2 inhibitors down, it's going to be so hard if they lose that Baron.
It's practically impossible at that point. As you can see, Stixay just dealing with the Elder Drake on his own right
He's going
now.
to solo it if Golden Guardians doesn't respond. No one is actually watching this, and he's just going to be able to take this for free, it looks like.
Elder Dragon is so much easier to solo than Baron is because he doesn't reduce the damage of the person he's attacking, so it becomes so easy for a fed carry to just go over there and take him down with a little bit of time. And now that that buff is on CLG, they're very scary to fight in open ground.
Exactly, and now you go straight over to Baron. That's such a good way to pull in your opponents and try to force them to answer what you are doing. If they start up the Baron with the Elder, they have the bot lane pushing in, they have the mid lane pushing in with these super minions, and CLG definitely has a lot of options at this point. You can see the Golden Guardians is prepping for a flank, though. High trying to sneak around here. If he can get into the back line, they can win a fight, and he is in a good spot. It's going to be on High and Lorlo to combo well, but CLG is looking to engage before they can do that.
This is do or die. Cosmic Radiance already coming down. True Shot Barrage goes through. High coming in from behind, but is it going to be too little, too late? Contract coming down. Flag onto multiple people. Tied to Blood finds 4. Who he's on a killing spree, and the Golden Guardians will not have enough today. High, the last man standing. He's able to find a couple. The stopwatch, the Zonias to buy a little bit of time, but it will not buy enough. The 8 for CLG.
And they're going to get their first win of the season here, finally taking them down. It was a great attempt from the Golden Guardians. They pulled off the combo, but with the Elder Dragon there, it's so much additional power, and they just didn't have enough.
High was not able to get into that fight fast enough. The trigger was pulled first by CLG. The reward for being able to make that decision in that instant is winning this game, and CLG will finally put themselves on the board, taking down the Golden Guardians.
Definitely a good win for CLG, but still lots to work on for this squad. They're coming out of week 2, 1-3. And it wasn't the cleanest of performances. They were very far behind. Again, Golden Guardians did have a strong lead. 2 games in a row this weekend. They were able to establish a strong early lead, but not hold on to it. And really, it was that overextension around Baron. They try to go for that. They get fully aced. They lose the Baron. They lose 6 turrets in 4 minutes. That swing was just insane. But before that, they were looking good. It looked like they had control of the game and could have picked up their first win.
Before that Baron, it was all about Golden Guardians. We talked about how their map play was better, how they were just making better decisions than CLG was. But League of Legends is a game where an entire pile of good decisions can be outdone by one singular poor decision. And that poor decision, like you said, was that Baron play. That's one that I guarantee you Golden Guardians are going to be going back and looking at and saying, we've got to make sure this doesn't happen again, because it was looking so good for this team before that. But yet, that one mistake is enough to give CLG the opportunity to come back.
Yeah, I mean, that one mistake was just catastrophic for them. They lost everything. They had not dropped a single turret. They had knocked down all of CLG's outers. They were thousands of gold ahead in the bot lane role, and all of a sudden, they try to stay on this Baron. They had started really well. They got a pick on Rainover. They go into the Baron. That saves Lorlo from the bot lane, but then they needed to pull back, and instead they tried to engage at very low health, perhaps overestimating how strong they were at that point in the game, but it cost them everything. I mean, that was one of the biggest gold swings I can think of really that I've seen in a long time. I mean, an 8,000 plus gold swing in 4 minutes or less is just absurd. And that's what CLG was able to pull off of the one mistake here from Golden Guardians.
And Golden Guardians still put up a solid fight afterwards. They held their ground for a long time, but just the difference in the tone of the game for Golden Guardians. Before that, they were the ones making the calls. They were the ones making the decisions. After that, it was, how do we hold on? How can we stay in this game? And it was hard.
And how can you find that perfect team fight, right? Because that was really going to be the only way that they could get back into it from that point, with CLG, playing the map very well. And to CLG's credit, I think they did a great job once they were kind of gifted that mistake. Once they did get ahead, he was taking over in the side lanes. They were 1-3-1ing. They were avoiding this team fight and really kind of establishing very good map control. So credit to them for a game well played.
Yep, CLG knew what to do once they got the advantage. So let's go ahead and send things down to Avali May and the CLG top laner.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Darshan. Congratulations on your first win of the split. You guys are now 1-3. But I want to ask, is this where you thought that CLG would be at week 2?
We definitely don't. It doesn't feel like we're a 1-3 team. I think we're a lot better than we've shown, and I think we have a lot of talented players. So I'm not too worried with starting out the season a little slow, and I think it's only going to get better and better as the weeks go by.
What problems or issues do you think CLG should work on for the upcoming week?
I think our mid to late game is definitely like our biggest area where we can improve. I feel like we've actually been making a lot of progress in that in practice, and I feel like actually we've been doing a lot better in practice in what we want to work on in the mid to late game, and I think translating on stage is kind of what we need to work on a little bit more. Like the good habits we have in scrims, like bringing that more to the stage would be more helpful.
Now, you guys kept the 3 core members of your team, but you also added in Rainover and Biofrost. How has the team been meshing together with those two?
I think pretty well. I think a lot of people have this impression that Biofrost isn't very vocal, but I actually think he has some good shot calling qualities about him, and he and Huhi have been doing a pretty good job of picking up that in the absence of not having Afro. And Rainover is just really, really good with the early game, abusing every single jungler, and it's been a pleasure to work with both of them.
Well, you guys play the undefeated Echo Fox next week. What are you guys going to do to prepare for that match?
I think for Echo Fox, I think their team fighting is really, really good. They're Dardoch was having great engages on Zac. Altec was playing team fights great. Phoenix was playing wonderful, but I think their actual biggest weakness is Huni. I think Hanser was able to abuse him with the help of his jungler, and I feel like that's the biggest advantage we'll also have, is that if I can get an advantage on Huni, I think it'll be a pretty winnable matchup.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this interview, and congratulations again on your win. And to hear more about this game, let's hear from the analysts at the desk.
Thank you very much, Avali. CLG picking up their first win of the split to 1-3. But as you can see up here, we've got 6 minutes on the clock. That's because there were 9 stopwatches in this game, an NALCS record. So we decided to see if we could do this analyst test segment in just under 6 minutes. So here you go. Every single one of the uses of stopwatch in this game.
Yep, they get turned online at 6 minutes, so...
High's not so great, Stix A's, questionable one, but then I think we saw some good uses.
Reasonable.
That one prevents the stun.
There's also, I think, the Ezreal had it and sold it without using it. Definitely didn't have it. That was a good one as well. There's a whole bunch that come in here. Rainover's going to drop his.
Yep.
That was okay.
Buy some time, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen.
Great rise, getting out, that's typical.
Can't wait till that
this
interaction's
one
gone.
Was very questionable by contracts. The engage itself, but a fantastic stopwatch by Darshan. Basically wins them the team fight, or makes it as lopsided a win as it was.
Whew, it's a lot of stopwatches, Dash.
That's a lot of stopwatches. 9 stopwatches. The only one who didn't take it, right, was Gnar in the top lane. Let's take a look at the champion, or champion select and the comps as they were decided for these teams. Remember, stopwatches across the board, but what's interesting for me is Gnar and Vladimir on the same team.
I thought this was super interesting as well, because I think CLG tried to return to their 1-3-1 roots, so to speak. Everyone, when you talk about this team, you talk about the glory days of 2016.
Double TP!
They had double TP, Rainover was great, and they ran 1-3-1 for CLG. So Ryze in mid lane and GP top lane is very much 1-3-1. But I actually liked what Golden Guardians did by kind of picking another composition
1-3-1 comp.
1-3-1 pretty well, and just throwing Vladimir mid lane as well as having a good matchup in the top with Gnar.
And it does fit with what they seem to be doing as a whole more often, where they're going for comfort, things that they want to play versus what's great in the meta. And Hai has always had a great Vladimir, and it's not super popular in the mid lane, but he held up versus Suhi just fine, had pressure in a lot of moments in this game, and they were doing well.
And if we track the early game, for both of these teams, both in this game and the season as a whole, CLG has largely struggled. A couple early game plays that they've executed on well, but as a whole, not building very many gold leads for themselves that they can execute on through the remainder of the game.
Not by 20 or by 30 minutes. You can see here gold at 10, gold at 15 even looks pretty decently, but then they just fall off a cliff because they haven't been able to, I guess, have the right level of communication or coordination, and oftentimes it looks like they're just throwing themselves.
Yeah,
to the opponent.
I mean, plus 500 and negative 700, over 1,000
That's
difference.
a big jump in 5 minutes.
Then then a 2,000 goal difference in the next 5 minutes. That's over the course of 10 minutes, a negative 3K goal deficit.
Point of clarification, you see it there at the bottom of the graphic, but that is
Average
for the
of
first
3
3 games. That does not include the game that was just played. This here's Golden Guardians averages for those same benchmarks, also averaging down. So the big surprise here was Golden Guardians now out to a lead in the early game.
Right, but it did actually start a little bit in CLG's favor. The first 5 minutes seemed to go their way when Contracts had a bit of an oopsie play, going over a wall that he really shouldn't have, and that was a moment that really started making it look like it was going to be the same thing for CLG, which it was, where you see once again, in this win, it was a small negative deficit before ballooning down very quickly.
Right,
Yeah,
CLG behind, they kind of sacrificed their outer 3 turrets. That point you're talking about, the Contracts engage came after 20 minutes. It was at 23, right before that 25. That's where all the gold comes flooding back into CLG's pockets. A totally boneheaded move, if I might use a term, to deem this for Contracts.
I kind of agree. This is the second death he had in the game and the second questionable engage, and this is where there was already Reign over dead, so I think Golden Guardians wanted to try and bait a 4v5, but they were all at half health by the time they actually baited the fight. So bad call, bad follow-up, bad execution by Golden Guardians, and this is where it becomes pretty worrying for CLG, because yes, in this moment they executed well and they bounced back, but in the past they had leads that they threw, and then here when they make the comeback, it's kind of more on the misplay of Golden Guardians than on the other side.
Right, that's the thing, Mark, right? That was kind of gifted to them. It's not until this moment that we really see kind of that old CLG team fighting prowess come through.
And the scary thing, this fight is crazy because this is like the ideal situation. 5-man Jarvan Gnar combo that everyone loves.
Vladimir.
With Vladimir dropping tons of these huge 5-man AoEs, but definitely got blown up really early on in that fight. The way that this comp should work for the side of Golden Guardians is you have this 4-man kind of ball comp engage, and Ezreal stays untouched in the back while everyone deals with your front line, but he died while the front line was being dealt with, so that's why that fight didn't quite work out for Golden Guardians. But that gold graph, it's still... And
That's an ugly gold graph.
They lost a Baron after getting that one on the side of CLG. So
Right.
they had a moment there where they lost all pressure in the game, had to stall out for another 5 minutes before Huhi's 1-3-1-ing potential on Rise was unmatched.
Yeah, and it's the second game of the weekend where Golden Guardians actually had a substantial lead and then lost the game to now be the only winless team in the LCS. Like, that hurts a lot for them, especially when the saving grace of this team is supposed to be Hai and his shot calling. So when
with
you have the
leads-
large leads, you should be winning the games. Really stings this Golden Guardians team.
Let's flip the microscope to CLG. Yes, they picked up their first win today, but much like TSM, their first win comes in a way that you wouldn't necessarily want. You're not walking away from today's games ultra happy as either a CLG member or a CLG fan saying, yep, we got it in the bag now. We're going to first place, just like Jet said.
I mean, even the TSM game, they opted into a strategy that they then executed on as passive as it was. Here it was a situation where CLG was losing this game. Most teams, 9 out of 10 teams, 8 out of 10 teams in the league win from the position Golden Guardians were in.
Yeah, and I mean, at least I predicted one of the CLG games correct.
Oh my God,
He's picking them till week
Jat's
4.
falling back on the
I'm playing for
predictions
Lincoln.
game.
There was a really optimistic Twitter person that tweeted me something about, like, just give them some time. I think they'll round it out for MSI.
No,
Like, I agree with that.
I mean, no, but see, I take a lot of...
You're playing Ezreal, think about it. You pop off on Ezreal, you'll get a girlfriend. That's true. Holy shit.
Stopwatch to keep himself alive. True Shot Barrage will cut him down anyway. A nice Mega Gnar onto 2. Wallop follows it up. Chemo Plague's going to be ticking. They find the kill onto Rainover.
Go. I'm on Ezreal! Nice. Okay. No. Go Baron after this. Go Baron after this. Go Baron, just go Baron.